Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is Howard from DataON, and today I'm in Nashville, actually, and great city. Just landed this morning, and sorry I had to take this call in the hotel, but that's just part of our business, where our job is to continue to visit customers and understand their needs and continue to help them be successful. Happy to be here today, and really happy for all of you to join this announcement of virtual meetup. It's a very exciting time for the industry, exciting time for DataON and our partners, especially we continue to help customers on this hybrid cloud journey. Today, I want to share with you the evolution of hybrid cloud and how DataON and our partner continue to take on this journey with our customer to help them be successful. On the call today, we have several of our partners that will share their experience with you. We have Alan from Microsoft, who will get a perspective as I go through the presentation on how Microsoft sees the world, which is our partner. We have Joe from Solidigm, who is really our storage partner, who's been helping us for the last 7 years continue to bring the best technology in the marketplace to our customer base. And lastly, we also have, really, I see them as an extension of DataON team, a customer and a partner from Strategic Online Systems Benjamin and his team, which he'll share a perspective of what a workload, a hybrid workload look like in a hybrid cloud Azure Stack HCI, especially focused on AI at the edge. So you'll get a really good flavor or taste of kind of ecosystem and how this entire world that we live in continue to evolve in this hybrid cloud journey. So in today's conversation, I want to make it as interactive as possible. So feel free to raise your hand and ask questions. We like questions, and we'll try our best to answer it. Anybody that raises a question, we'll give you a T-shirt and we'll give you some Starbucks cards. That's the incentive. I want to induce questions. So if you raise your hand, you get a $10 Starbucks card. We'll get that to you, and a T-shirt, which is something that we love to give to our customer and new prospective customers. I see a lot of familiar faces, but I also see new people here. So for today's agenda, I'll do a quick introduction. I'll kind of share with you the journey that DataON has been on with Microsoft with this hybrid cloud with Azure Stack HCI. We'll share about the key building blocks, how we architect a solution for our customer. Then I want to share with you kind of the announcement we made a week ago, which is really the evolution of the technology that we've been on and how we're delivering more value to our customer. Okay. To start off with, I think it's important to know that there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. There's great solution where customers want to go to the cloud. There are reasons why people want to stay on premises, continue to run their workload. But the reality is that hybrid multi-cloud and hybrid infrastructure is an option for enterprise. And many enterprise, which in this case, from a survey, more than 80% of enterprise today really adopted the concept of hybrid, which is having workload in the places you want, whether or not that workload is in the cloud or on premises. They can make that decision because they really embrace the hybrid infrastructure. And the reason why people want the hybrid environment are many, and some of the key reason why is there's old systems out there, legacy system, that you cannot change the application and you need to continue to run your workload on hybrid. I was just there yesterday at City of Commerce in Georgia, in which is a very small school district of 13,000 people, but their billing applications are so old, they cannot move it to the cloud. They have to run it on premise. That's an example of how application really drives the fact that they can't move it on premise, right? Many customers we work with are government agencies, could be university research institutions. There's a lot of regulation, compliance, data sovereignty that require them to have their data sitting on premise as well. So that's another key driver. As you continue to run data at the edge, you will see that if you want the information instantaneously, you got to have low latency. And I think Benjamin today in his story will share with you why having an infrastructure at the edge with Azure Stack HCI able to do AI at the edge requires you to process stuff at the edge, right? And that's where the latency comes in to make sure that you can get the data in real time. And lastly, a key is making sure you understand what you need and continue to embrace the right technology that's right for you. For those that is new to DataON, and many of you know DataON as a company, we've been on this hybrid cloud journey for the last, I would say, 10 years, right? And this is eye chart, but I want to share this with you because it really tells the fact that not just DataON and our partners, this journey is continuing. DataON as a company started in 1987. We embraced Microsoft technology in 2012 when Microsoft announced Azure in 2010. And you're seeing this evolution on the top. Microsoft continued to innovate in terms of their solution to service the enterprises, right? In the world we live in, Microsoft continued to come out with technology that's storage, virtualization, networking, and you can see that between 2010 and 2022, you have this evolution of technology of Microsoft from software-defined storage to hybrid cloud, and now they're really embracing the fact that they can deliver services to cloud with the Azure Arc-enabled capabilities. And I think Alan will allude to a little bit later in my conversation. But in the same time frame that Microsoft continued to innovate, DataON never stopped, right? I want to put a picture of a server in there because you have to understand the world we started 10 years ago is really selling the infrastructure and hardware and continue to add value on top of it. But if you continue to evolve moving forward, you'll see that DataON and our partner continue to innovate and not just selling the infrastructure, but delivering services and monitoring. We create our own software, MS Pro, to help you monitor solution. And now with our new announcement, we not only want to deliver a hybrid cloud, we want to deliver hybrid services to our customer. So you can take advantage of all the capability to run your workload, whether or not in the cloud or on premises. And in this journey we clearly have serviced many customers and delight many customers. And these customers really span across multiple verticals, multiple applications, and they've been on this journey and they made a choice to go with the technology. So that's kind of the very high level journey that we ourselves, DataON, has been on with our customer base. But more importantly, we will continue this journey with all of you. I want to spend the next couple of slides on making sure we ground ourselves on the concept of Azure Stack HCI hybrid cloud, because this is the foundational technology we call the building block to build a hybrid environment for our customer. And to do this, I think it's important to understand this is a technology delivered by Microsoft as a service. It's a standalone OS that sits on-premise, but delivered from Azure as a service. But it was built because understanding of a hybrid environment and to make sure that when customer wants a hybrid environment, they can take advantage of the cloud services. It's enterprise scalable. It is performing technology because in the evolution of the last 10 years from Windows Server 2012 to 19, the innovation continued on the storage side and the virtualization side. It's continued to use familiar tools. So many admins that we talk to, which you are here today, understand the technology and able to adopt to it quite easily. And more importantly, really you have a choice. You could deploy as an edge devices, put in your data center, or you could really use that as a true hybrid platform that you could take advantage of all the capabilities. Anything to add there, Alan?
No, you did a good job. I think it's important to understand that, we're not developing this stuff in a vacuum, right? So this is customer driven. The customer has come along and said, look, you've had 40 years on-prem enterprise software working with us, with all the companies that we know and love, and you've got a decade plus in the public cloud, and we need you to sort of deliver the promise and what you're doing in the public cloud to on-prem. And so the initial version of that, which was called Azure Stack Hub, was really installing Azure on-prem. Now that came with its own sort of idiosyncrasies and cost and expense and complexity. And the customers really said, no, we don't want to install Azure on-prem. We want the same thing everywhere. We want a singular compute fabric, a singular application platform across our entire estate. So that way we can have the same security, the same compliance, same governance. And then I can run where I best want to run my workload, right? And so that's when we went back to the drawing board and said, okay, how do we take Azure? How do we take the core OS and extend that everywhere? And that's essentially what Azure Stack HCI is. It's the Azure core plus some other stuff that we need to get run at the edge with Arc, which basically extends the control plane out to everywhere. And so That's how we're able to now start delivering Azure services rather than develop Azure services for the edge. We take the same services and can push them everywhere. And so that's kind of the goal, is to, not that we'll ever get there, right? But the goal is feature parity, right? So something that shows up in Azure, I can use it at the edge. The reason we'll never technically get there is you never have enough hardware at the edge to run some of the things we're doing in the cloud, Cosmos DB and things like that. It'll never happen. So, but generally speaking, the idea is that when you see something show up in Azure, we can run that at the edge if that's what you want to do. The other thing I'll point out is Howard's numbers are a little bit out of date on the 82%. That was an accurate number, but if you actually look at it over time, the year before that, when they did the survey, it was 73% were hybrid, right? That year was 82. The year after that was actually 93, right? And so
Wow.
we're now close to 97% being hybrid, with my prediction being it'll be 100%, right? There's, and the example I gave is even in pure play accounts that say, no, we are literally 100% cloud, then you talk to them and they say, well, no, we still need to control the building access. We still need that locally, because that can't be in the cloud, because if the internet goes down, I can't badge into my building. And so the goal is going to be 100% everywhere. And my take on this is that when we introduced texting years ago, we didn't scrap email. We just went to what's the most appropriate way. And that's all hybrid really gives you. Where's the most appropriate way to run the workload? Do I run it on-prem? Do I run it in the cloud? And over time, if the situation changes, I can flip. I can say, move it down on-prem, move it up into the cloud. So that's my 2 cents on this, Howard.
Thank you. Good perspective. And I think it's important to know that, this continue to evolve and customer continue to embrace kind of the technology itself. As we talk to customer, they always ask the question, how we use Azure Stack HCI, and really, as alluded earlier, multiple ways. And more importantly, we see customers continue to run their traditional application, but more and more we see emerging technology such as container being now run as a on-premise cluster. You can run AVD across the board, or SQL services. And these are applications that's happening, real applications that the customer uses today. But I think one thing this is important, that as we continue down this evolution, it's important to know that there's more efficiency and innovation happening. And the latest innovation, as Microsoft continue to iterate their technology, is this concept of delivering service all through the cloud in Azure. I think that's important to note, right? Because as you look through it, it's a multi-cloud environment, and now Azure Stack HCI is really as a service. What that means is when you look through top down from Azure down, you can now have the ability to manage these services and provide provisioning, security across all the cluster across the board. One interesting conversation I had with customers this week is, customer says, wow, I can now just take marketplace VMs from Azure, whatever the Linux version, Oracle version, I just apply it and I push it down via Azure Stack HCI. It sounds very simple, but before you had to create a VM. Now everything's available for you to push it down. Everything's provisioned and evergreen. It's continued evolution to make everything more simple, more easy for the customer to manage and deploy, and it's all secure. So this definitely is a direction that many customers are looking to take advantage of as we continue down this hybrid cloud journey. I always had to go back to kind of a building block. Given a hybrid environment, you still need an infrastructure, but more importantly, making sure the infrastructure you guys architect is the right infrastructure. From a DataON perspective, we really look closely at making sure the solution we deliver to our customer really deliver the workload and application you need. So in terms of compute, clearly from our perspective, Intel latest Xeon Gen 4 processor is delivering the next level of compute. That's how we refresh our current server now from the 6000 series Xeon Gen 3 now to the 7000 series Xeon Gen 4 platform, and with all the PCIe expansion. Network GPU continue to be innovative with Azure Stack HCI, now GPU supported at the edge, rather not to run AI workload or ML workloads. Now GPU have the capability to deliver that type of processing power. Clearly, storage is one of the key drivers for a lot of our customers, and really the storage right now today is revolve around all flash. It seems like 90% of our business now is all flash. There's still some hard drives, but it seems like all flash and going to QLC is a trend for a lot of our customers. Never will we underestimate the importance of security. Ability now the platform with a root of trust, ability to secure your platform from the bottom to make sure you have the right security is important, and plus all the compliances that Azure deliver on top. Software management is also a critical area for DataON. We continue to invest our engineering dollar in development to make sure we have the right software for the customer. But more importantly, as we continue down this journey, which we are today, DataON really is aligning with what the customer wants, which is, hey, DataON, you deliver the infrastructure, you help us set up infrastructure, but now we want to use the hybrid services. Whether or not the hybrid services is set up a Kubernetes cluster, whether or not it's run a SQL managed SQL, whether or not it's divert VDI at the edge, you need to help us do that and manage it. And I think DataON is embracing that request from the customer and now coming with capability. When we deliver a solution for you, we want to also give you the capability to offer you services to do hybrid solutions. And that's what the evolution of this hybrid cloud that DataON has been on with our customer, and we will like to continue to work with our customer in that journey. And more importantly, we will never give the fact that everything we do is white glove service from the beginning to the end. The last slide is, I didn't want to go through the slide, but it's important to know that to deliver a hybrid cloud and deliver a hybrid services, really need to make sure that your Azure is ready. DataON continue to learn. So when we deliver these services, whether or not it's Azure Landing Zone, AVD, Managed SQL, or AI at the Edge, we want to make sure we deliver a complete turnkey design, deployment, and service integration. Whether or not for ourselves or our partners, our goal is to deliver that complete solution for our customer and make sure that when you get a solution, you're really ready to take advantage of it. So that's a high level kind of where we're at today, and it's been a while since we had this virtual webinar. I'm very happy that we continue to grow as a company and we continue to be on this journey with Azure Stack HCI, and we want all of you to reach out to us if you have any questions. I now will pass to Joe, who's our close partner at Solidigm, to share some of the technology they're doing to help this entire journey with hybrid cloud. Go ahead, Joe.
Awesome. Thank you, Howard. Hey, guys. Let me get my screen going here. All right. All right, hang on one sec. Okay, screen looking good? Thumbs up? All right, cool. Hey guys, Joe here. So I've been working with Howard, like he said, for a long time. You know, I represent one of those boxes in that previous slide, one of the ingredients in the DataON hardware. Happy to be here. You know, a lot of people don't know who Solidigm is, so I appreciate the opportunity to kind of reintroduce ourselves to you guys. And you know, I'm going to talk a little bit about one of those hardware ingredients. Maybe get a little bit geeky for you guys on SSDs. Hopefully, share something maybe you hadn't heard before. And I'll try to do that in less than 10 minutes. But as a quick intro, so Solidigm, let me advance this. All right, here we go. Okay, Solidigm. So Solidigm is really the result of the Intel's old SSD division that was purchased by SK Hynix. So SK Hynix purchased the old Intel SSD division, formed a new company. We call it Solidigm. But Solidigm today is still selling Intel branded SSDs. So I think most of the SSDs, if you cracked open a DataON server today and looked at what SSDs were inside, you'd see P5520s with Intel logos on them. Those are being sold by Solidigm today. I was at Intel 21, 22 years, and then we formed this Solidigm thing. So a long time Intel guy here. But what I wanted to do today is kind of plug our latest and greatest SSD that you might start seeing in DataON servers moving forward. And I like to think of it as it's the evolution of the technology. And so and it kind of touches on this TLC to QLC transition. So I want to kind of maybe educate you guys a little bit and try to dispel some myths about QLC. And also, the way I would position it is that, okay, so this new drive, I like to think of as sort of the little brother to, or younger brother to 5520, and then we're calling it the 5430. So, and obviously, as you can see here, it's carrying the new Solidigm logo. So all of our new drives that they're going to be shipping moving forward will be branded with the Solidigm logos. So we'll be shipping both Intel Solidigm drives. But the thing here is that this being the latest and greatest technology, the latest and greatest SSD ingredient for mainstream systems, there's a lot of vectors that you can knobs you can turn and trade-offs you can make with regards to capacity. Everyone wants big capacity, low cost, high performance, high endurance, and there's levers to turn for all of, there's knob to turn for all of those vectors. We like to think that this drive really hits a very, very sweet spot, and the reason why it hits that sweet spot is because it is based on our latest QLC silicon, and its bigger brother 5520 is a TLC drive. But what I want to kind of show you guys today is that, hey, there's no need to be worried about QLC. Some, in the past, some have thought that, the trade-off is something that they wouldn't be willing to do with regards to endurance and performance. So I want to try to dispel that myth a little bit and show you that, why this drive is an excellent fit for mainstream hardware, mainstream workloads. So getting a bit technical here, diving into the technology, how are we storing these bits? These images represent kind of like a cross-sectional view of the chips that are in your SSD storing the data. We call them the NAND chips, right? And what you see in the middle is an array of a 3D array of floating gate transistors. So think of those as little memory cells, okay? And when we talk about TLC versus QLC, what we're talking about is the ability to store 3 bits per cell or 4 bits per cell, triple level cell, quad level cell. You do that by storing by reading multiple charge levels in one memory cell. So if you can charge it up to 9 different charge levels, you can store 3 bits per cell, or 16 separate charge levels in that same memory cell, you can store 4 bits per cell. And this sounds a little bit braggy, but I think starting with Intel and now with Solidigm, we do believe that we have the most advanced QLC silicon, the most mature QLC silicon. So in 2017, we launched our first QLC generation on our 64-layer 3D NAND, and we've evolved that to now be shipping on our 4th generation of QLC silicon. It's our 5th generation of 3D NAND, where we started adding layers instead of just shrinking the transistors. But this is our 4th generation of QLC built on 192-layer NAND. The more layers you can stack in the silicon and the more bits you can store per cell, the lower you can drive that cost down. So we feel like, with QLC, we're on the cutting edge of driving down cost, which means value for end customers. But we want to do that in a no compromise sort of way. So at the NAND level, if you go and read articles about TLC versus QLC, you'll read about PE cycles, what the NAND is, when you're, the way you wear out SSDs is by writing to them. And every time you write to NAND, you have to erase part of it. So that cycle of erasing and rewriting and pushing electrons across an insulator wears out the drive. And NAND is rated by PE cycles. A lot of people will tell you QLC NAND is 1,000 PE cycles, but ours, we're working with 3,000 PE cycle NAND. And so our QLC NAND really is very close to TLC when it comes to its endurance capability. And we feel like we have the most highly endurant QLC. So, all of this hopefully translates to minimal trade-off and even advantages versus QLC when you're using the latest TLC drives, all while being, a little bit lower in terms of cost. So one thing to kind of, one thing I wanted to point out, you guys, many of the guys on this call, Andy, Benjamin, Howard, you guys are all a little bit more experts when it comes to the actual workloads that are being run. But what we encourage a lot of customers to do is use some of the tools we have available to look at what their storage characteristics look like. You know, what does their workload look like from a storage perspective? So what's your percentage of reads and writes, sequential versus random? And you know, based on that workload, how quickly might you wear out a drive? And one thing that we've found, and there's a lot of folks writing about this in the industry, people are overbuying in terms of endurance. You know, modern workloads are becoming more and more read intensive, and the average enterprise workload, or 94% of the enterprise workloads right now, are kind of operating at a 78% read, 22% write type of mix. Okay, so it feels like workloads are becoming more and more read heavy, especially with some of these modern workloads. If this is kind of like a shocking stat, but 99% of SSDs only use 15% of the endurance of the lifetime of the drive. So we always rate our endurance over 5 years. But if you look at, you know, if you did the calculations, and if you're running an online transaction processing, you know, at workload, you know, the amount of drive writes per day that you really need are much lower than a lot of people think. Your drive's probably going to last 15 plus years. So, and by the way, this 99% of the drives using 15% of the user life, that's also given the fact that over 80% of the drives in the world are rated at less than 1 drive write per day. So we're not talking about high endurance drives. We're talking about standard vanilla drives are not using most of the life. So there is room. So the point here is there is room to take one of those dials and maybe turn the dial down a little bit from an endurance perspective. So maybe you can make that slight trade-off, you know, to make versus maybe TLC, and to take advantage of the cost savings that come with QLC, right? So this is a little bit of how the sausage is made with the SSD and what trade-offs we make. But we wanted to kind of show you what this 5430 drive, again, 5520, which is in most of the things today, we like to refer to as the most advanced TLC drive out there. So, you know, if there's any concern, we have got 5520. But really, if you want to maximize your value, you know, we've been promoting 5430, and with 5430, we will based on QLC, we will actually outperform a TLC drive in a lot of some vectors. Like read performance is better than TLC, than a lot of mainstream TLC drives out there. You don't have any compromise on read with a QLC drive. Your write performance will admittedly be a little bit lower because the way you write to a QLC drive, you have more charge levels. So you have to make sure you hit that exact charge level. And so, you know, the write performance does go down a little bit compared to a TLC drive, but, you know, is it good enough? You know, we would say probably. And endurance, the endurance does tick down a little bit from a drive write per day perspective, but we feel like the right way to look at endurance is in the total petabytes written for the life of the drive, because drive writes per day doesn't factor in, you know, how big or small the drive is. So if you look at it from a total petabytes written over the life of the drive, 5430, you know, beats its competitive TLC drives out there, given that, you know, we'll have capacities up to 30 terabyte. We're already shipping the up to 15 terabyte version, but the 30 terabyte version of 5430 will be shipping pretty soon. So max capacity is, you know, we can more easily build these larger capacities given the density of QLC. So it's bigger, it's even faster when it comes to TLC. It's actually, when you look at petabytes written, higher than the highest petabytes written you can get out of a competitive TLC drive. And yeah, the write performance might go down a little bit, but again, we feel like we've struck the right balance here. And so we're excited for this SSD to kind of be inside, you know, DataON servers, because again, it's the cutting edge. And again, it should allow DataON to pass on some of those savings to end customers, because the media that's in the drive is a lower cost media versus TLC. So it's just the latest innovation for SSDs. So that's pretty much what I got. I'm going to be tossing it to Benjamin. I hope you guys got something out of that. And again, Howard, just want to say thanks for including me on this webinar. It's fun.
And thank you for the partnership. And I'm sure that as we continue to get customers to use the technology, they'll understand the differences, and we could bring more knowledge to you guys. Thank you so much. Benjamin,
Awesome.
You're up.
All righty. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Benjamin Clements. This is always real exciting for me just to hear from you, Joe, and Alan, to hear the different things going on. Like when Alan talked about the hybrid workloads, we're hearing that from all of our customers. And so that will kind of take me into what I'm here to talk about today. So just a quick background about SOS. We have a long history, nearly 30 years of supporting customers as an MSP. And during that time, we've taken on, some other roles, like digital risk mitigation roles of, high availability and disaster recovery. And our relationship with DataON started off as we were a customer. So I called up Howard out of the blue and said, hey, I've got a client who has a SAN, and this SAN is being bought out by somebody else, and now they're wanting me to upgrade to some other SAN. I said, I want to get out of this. Hey, tell me what Microsoft is doing. And so I said, I need something that's going to be, one, more performant, and two, more future-proof. Microsoft's not going to be bought out anytime soon. So our relationship started that way. And so that was 4, 5, 6 years ago, something like that. I can't remember. Time flies, Howard. So today we are very excited to be part of this talk. We are announcing something called StrategicVision. Okay. And just real quick overview, StrategicVision started off as addressing the need to help organizations keep up with seemingly endless amounts of data coming off their IoT sensors and security like cameras and so forth. And as Howard and I have talked about these struggles and what different nonprofits, education, other SLED customers, he introduced me to certain teams at Microsoft and eventually NVIDIA that we have worked with to accomplish this goal. So as a result, StrategicVision was born. So StrategicVision is using AI at the edge to gather things like security video and other IoT data to bring those together for more comprehensive analysis. So we can actually not just apply AI to those and see in, historical reports, but more importantly, to now take action on the data in real time. So today we're going to give you a quick demo of just a little bit of the power of bringing together enterprise proven and world-class performing. And you guys that have not, seen a DataON, an Azure Stack HCI running on DataON, you have to talk to an existing customer to see what that world-class performance looks like. So we're bringing that together, DataON, Azure Stack HCI, and NVIDIA GPUs to create an end-to-end workflow. Now, again, we're talking about edge AI at the edge, which means this is on premises, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the most common data source that all organizations have, but honestly underutilize, which is your video, okay? So we talk to a lot of organizations, and like what you're talking about, Alan, talking about, this hybrid workload is very important. Well, they talk about not just we need to keep the data and the pictures on premises, but they all talk about, hey, we have too little coverage. And it always comes like hey, don't tell anybody, but this part of the parking lot or this part of the hall or whatever is not covered. Then about 5 minutes later, yeah, we have too many video streams. So we talk about both. We have too little coverage and we have too much coverage. And honestly, The reason for that is there's just too much data to collect for historical reporting, much less identify objects and actions of interest in real time. Okay, so let me tell you what my analogy to all of this video that traditionally existing security camera companies do is they overwhelm you with useless data. Okay, what do I mean by useless data? Here I am in Memphis, Tennessee, and let's say that I have a data center in Memphis, Tennessee, and the way I'm going to monitor that data center is watch the national nightly news, okay? And I'm going to watch them talk for 2 hours, and I'm going to be watching the whole time. Are they going to say anything about Memphis? Are they saying anything about riots or storms or power or anything? So I watch for 2 hours, okay? So
are you sharing your slides, Benjamin? Well, I'm not seeing your
not
slides.
yet. I'm almost about to show it.
Good. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So there's so much noise. They're telling me about all these things that I don't care about. They're never saying the terms Memphis. The other thing is it's passive information. I have to see it for something to happen. Now, what if instead I introduce a knock that actually looks for specific events and can take some action? What we're talking about is introducing this knock for your AI workloads, okay? So we need to start focusing attention on interesting objects or events using enterprise AI. So we need to clear up the focus. So, hey, everybody but Caroline, can you leave the room? Okay, Barry, will you unblur her face?
Okay, small Caroline.
Okay. So what we're demonstrating is we're using a budget-friendly camera from a well-known brand that is used particularly at nonprofits and schools, including some of our existing customers. And remember, this is AI at the edge. So we're keeping all the videos and pictures on premises, storing these on Azure Stack HCI, using DataON hardware, using NVIDIA GPUs, okay? And what we're demonstrating here is we're using one camera and creating two separate streams to show two different AI models, and they're actually more than just two AI models running concurrently. So the one on the left is selective blurring. So it's only looking for a face, and this was a very quick analogy. In fact, what we did is we just used a single frame for Caroline to say we don't want to blur her face. And so even though we could say, hey, don't blur or blur faces that are in a particular region of a particular camera, we're not doing that. We're actually focusing on a single picture of her face. And again, remember, this is at the edge, so we're keeping this, on premises. The example on the right where it shows YMCA, Caroline, can you finish that out? Thank you. Is a game example that we created for a conference. And this is just kind of using our imagination to say, okay, so we're seeing the same video, and what we're doing is creating, and again, this is not a Kinect camera, like if you remember the old Xbox Kinect. It's not a special Kinect camera that has a laser in it, any type of infrared sensors. This is a normal budget-friendly camera that we're doing multiple things from. So, use your imagination. The part on the left, we've heard a lot of interest about, hey, we need to go back to a historical incident, and we need to have this hour-and-a-half incident that, we don't want to get permission from hundreds of other students. We just want to see the two children involved or something. And so currently they do things like that by hand. Now you can see that Caroline went blurred because, again, we took one facial just for this one demo. So, in real life, we'd take multiple and cluster those together. But so think about the uses of that. Think about the uses of the skeleton where certain body landmarks are in certain positions, maybe indicative of, a fight going on, doing the robot apparently, or like if somebody has fallen down. So as you can imagine, I'm very excited about this because think about all the different use cases. Identifying maybe backpacks in areas they shouldn't be, backpacks that have stayed still for more than 15 seconds in an area it shouldn't be. The number of people, measuring the number of people coming into an area, maybe even over a point in time to be able to measure maybe capacity. Actually knowing how many people are in a big auditorium or something that has 9 entrances. So accumulating all of that for the sake of if a natural disaster comes through. How many people are currently in a building? Picking up license plates to do a car pickup line for school. There are so many different use cases that it almost becomes that we just have to get really creative and just ask for somebody, what are your current problems? If you don't know how to solve your issues, it's a great way we can step you through this and brainstorm using your existing protocols, as well as addressing problems that you haven't solved, in the past and don't know how to solve. What we're showing at the bottom is, this doesn't really make any sense, but what we're showing is that we can take disparate systems. Here we're counting the number of faces that we saw and the number of times that YMCA was spelled out, which is data that you can't count together, but we can actually bring all these different types of systems into one dashboard. So think about if you had a key card system and you have your camera systems, and maybe you have a GPS that's keeping track of your car assets. We can bring all those data together and start to do some really interesting things with those, even if they're not all, of course, from the same vendor. So so here at our office, we purposely use lots and lots of different off-the-shelf cameras that are, quote, incompatible with each other, because it's not doing AI in the cloud. It's not doing AI on the camera. It's doing it on a local Azure Stack HCI running on DataON equipment using NVIDIA GPUs. So let me just turn off this. Where'd it go? So just real quick to finish up, we've talked about video, but we're using AI to turn the video into actionable data points, okay? And that's 2 of the key words. 1, data point, meaning it's an objective data point. 2, actionable. Most every other time that we bring this data in together, it's passive. We just see it happening. We don't interact with something else that can take action on it. So from there, we can consolidate these data points with other systems. Keep in mind, this is AI at the edge. So StrategicVision doesn't just apply to video. It applies to things that we can gather and make reports and make actions based on using AI at the edge. So StrategicVision both creates and consolidates data points from disparate systems to give a complete vision into the organization. So thank you guys for including me. Benjamin Clements, reach out to Howard. He can get in touch with me. Alan, Joe, thank you so much for that. I learned a lot. Alan, I'm hearing the same type of things that you're talking about, that so many workloads, people want the ability to run certain workloads depending on either latency, which what we've seen, and maybe data sovereignty, where we need our data to be stored because of either breaches or what have you. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank
Cool
you,
demo.
Benjamin. Yeah, it's actually really cool. Benjamin will be on a worldwide road trip with me when I go to a different event to showcase this demo. We shared the first time in Georgia 2 months ago in Savannah with all the K-12 schools in Georgia, and we are going to start engaging with many organizations to start showing them what you could do. And we'll showcase the same thing through state, local government, and enterprises. I get excited because in the past 10 years, when we talk to customers, we talk a lot about speeds and feeds. I think the speeds and feeds are getting less and less talked about. Well, how many IOPS? You know, I don't even talk about IOPS anymore to anybody. I talk about workloads. I talk about hybrid benefit. I talk about how do we make sure it makes you're more efficient, right? So what Benjamin has really showcased is really taking technology and really leveraging the hybrid capability and bring AI truly to you at the edge. You could process video, you can make decisions, you could make evaluations, which is very critical for many organizations. And I think is very, very incredible what they have done. That's why I love when I bring them to all the customer to share with them what truly these workload looks like on the edge, right? And I think, Alan, for you guys, AI at the edge is one of the topics you guys talk about quite a bit at Microsoft. And I think this is something that's very important to show how a workload can really truly be delivered through Azure Stack HCI.
Yeah, I'd say 50% of proof of concepts done by Microsoft AI at the edge.
Wow.
The balance is Azure Virtual Desktop and some other custom stuff we do. That's probably, you know, if I wrapped all those up, that'd be about 99%.
Wow. Well, a lot of opportunity, Benjamin. We'll be talking to Alan soon. You know, I think, you know, there's a lot of audience here, and we're about 15 minutes in. You know, I want to make sure I can sum up the story today. The story today, the headline is DataON, our partner customer, continue to be on this hybrid cloud journey, and it's ever changing. And the journey really takes us now to a point where we're bringing workloads to you to make your operation more efficient, to bring value to you so you can make decisions that could be game-changing or life-changing, to help you to deliver services where you could help your modern workload like AVDT more efficient, bring more security capability to you from the cloud where everything delivered as a service. So you'll see the evolution of this journey that we all are on, and we continue to be on this journey with Microsoft and our partner to make sure that we deliver the best technology solution to you. So if you're a customer, you're a partner, take that and see where it could apply to you, and reach out to any of us, and we're happy to help you and to find the right solution for you. Do we have any questions from the audience? You could just yell it out. Don't be shy.
We have a question at the top of the chat for Noah for, I assume, Joe.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I just noticed that myself, actually. There something about the read. I've heard the read performance of QLC is more susceptible to noise due to voltage. Blah blah blah. Okay, so yeah, there's a couple things. I mean, this can get really complicated, but there's one key factor about the maturity of the technology. There's the maturity that plays into the maturity of the technology. So there's most NAND is very similar. You're storing electrons in a memory cell, and you're creating an array of memory cells to store those electrons. So it's an electrostatic charge. There's two ways to structure those memory cells. You can use what's called floating gate NAND, or you can use what's called replacement gate or charge trap flash, and that refers to, it's kind of like building the skyscraper. That's how you support the floors and separate the cells. Intel, I think, starting with Intel and becoming Solidigm, the NAND that started, the floating gate NAND that Intel started selling, and it was based on floating gate, and now Solidigm is the only SSD vendor out there still building on floating gate. Everyone else is using charge trap flash. Okay, floating gate is more mature for QLC, and and the way that the memory cells are structured, it has better charge isolation from the other memory cells. So it isn't as volatile, if you will, you know, and you do have to, in QLC, you are reading 16 charge levels versus 9, so there is more fine grain. You're dividing up that voltage a little tighter. But by keeping the memory cells more isolated, you're able to kind of hold that charge level and not have an issue there. So I think the floating gate versus charge trap plays a role. And the thing is, charge trap is getting better. It's just that floating gate had a little bit of a lead. So charge trap is improving from a QLC perspective, but the most mature QLC technology is on floating gate. And you see that in terms of data retention over time, and also that sort of charge isolation. So again, what it really boils down to is kind of the maturity of the technology. So floating gate really is the best. So the one thing that, a lot of us build kind of the same products, like, for the most part, a lot of the TLC drives are very, very similar, but I feel like we have the best QLC drives out there, and they do have a unique angle to them. So they are somewhat differentiated. And we just announced a 61 terabyte drive. So we're gonna NVMe drive. So we're like going to be the only guys out there with a production level 61 terabyte QLC SSD. So pretty excited about that.
Let me get a sample of this. I can sell it in the gray market and make some money. My gosh, 60 terabytes. Thank you, Joe, for that answer. Any other questions from the audience before we wrap this up? Yeah,
I have one small question for Benjamin. The cluster you're running underneath the off-the-shelf camera, how big is it? Is it just a single node, dual node, or how big is the hardware underneath to accommodate it? Because I heard you talk about a GPU that's inside, but
so you've got the different limitations depending on what you're wanting to do with it. So if we're talking about a certain number of cameras, like 200 cameras, and you're wanting to run some live workloads on those, you're going to be running quickly into limitation of GPUs. So you start to look through of how many GPUs can support a certain number of cameras based on, one, the resolution that you're doing, two, based on the AI model. The talk these days is, oh, we have AI. Well, that's like saying I've got intelligence. My 4-year-old niece is intelligent, and you're trying to compare that to a Harvard grad. There's no comparison. Their intelligence is such a buzzword. So it also depends on what type of AI engine that you're using, how many that you can support. All that to say is, what we like to do is try to start off with a single node cluster. And for you out there thinking a single node cluster, it is a brilliant concept by Microsoft because it allows you to get in, and then you can seamlessly turn it into a 2-node cluster without scrapping anything. So you're looking at one GPU, how many cameras that you're working on, or what kind of AI models you're working on. Two, how much of the actual video storage do you want to keep? So that's where the storage comes into play. And then three, once we're doing some very interesting things with these and collecting 16,000 data points every second, well, then that becomes the storage performance of Azure Stack HCI. So you're kind of looking at three different things: GPU, the performance of storage of Azure Stack HCI, and then how much retention do you want of actual videos. So it's a depends. It's just, unfortunately, a lot of different pieces to that. It depends.
Yeah, but for example, for this demo, because I'm thinking out loud, we are also doing some exhibitions in Europe, and it would be a nice feature, because I heard Howard saying we're showcasing this. Maybe to showcase it with a single camera pointed at the audience, for example, on your booth, and then you can see the stick figures coming up to the booth and translating it that way. Then you don't need a big. They could do it with the single node, I think.
Yeah, we do it with the single node.
Cool.
You can kind of see the single node that's in the. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen anymore. I'll just show it real quick. So it is a single node 2U. Forgive me if I'm saying it wrong, Howard. I think it's a 6208G right here. It's a single node. I've got a laptop sitting on top of it, but it's this single node right here. It's not even sitting in a data center, so there's no special cooling or anything. It It currently has an A100 and an A40. We're not using the capacities of both. We're just doing lots and lots of different testing and workloads and trainings and everything. But yes, it easily fits on a single node, especially for a conference demonstration. So that's what we use, a conference demonstration, a single node.
Yeah.
Benjamin,
Okay.
hey, it's Barry. Just while you got your screen up, you can see the GPU utilization graph there. So what we're doing here, you can see it's what, 10% maybe of that A100 GPU.
And it's doing a lot of other things.
Yeah, it's
So-
running all of our other systems. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got, we can't show our POCs, of course, because they want to use this because of privacy. So we have to only use, like, this is just one of the cameras we have at our office. And so we are running it against all others, running multiple AI engines, etc. But yes, one node is good, can provide a very good demonstration.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Thank you, guys. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Joe, for sharing the audience with the seminar today, webinar today. Looking forward to working with you guys on this journey of hybrid cloud and helping our customer. Thank you for everybody attending. I look forward to meeting all of you soon, and have a great weekend. Thank you.